Hello, everyone. I am Catherine Gregory, co-founder of Modern Wisdom Press, and I'm here today with Melissa Moore, Ph.D., who is a Buddhist teacher and has dedicated her life to teaching Buddhism and contemplative psychology. She's the founder of Karuna Training, which is a certification in contemplative psychology, and she's been doing this since 1996. We are here to talk about her beautiful book, The Diamonds Within Us. So welcome, Melissa. I'm so glad to have you here.
Thank you. It's nice to see you again. Thank
It's
you.
nice to see you too. And I know that it's been a couple of years since your book came out, and I'm just really curious. Can you talk a little bit about the title, first of all?
I knew I wanted to call it The Diamonds Within Us, which are these innate capacities within us that have to almost be cooked with our awareness within us in an active way in order to ripen into the wisdom we all possess. And so, but you added this uncovering brilliant sanity through contemplative psychology, which is really the path of contemplative psychology. So I'm really proud of that title. And it really speaks to the work. It really speaks to the work.
I love a lot that you talk about sanity, and I know in Buddhism this is, a particular theme, and so I'm curious because of the times we're in, and especially during the writing and publishing of your book. It was the middle of COVID, and there was a real need for sanity and some practices that could bring us back into our own sane awareness. And so I know in the book you have a lot of practices and a lot of tools and guidance for your reader that are really founded, I believe, on the training you do through Karuna. And can you talk just a little bit about the work you do with the people who come into Karuna and how these practices are available through this book to anyone?
Well, everything that I'm teaching and that is so appropriate for this time is how to slow down and come close to ourselves in a way that we're able to glean the wisdom that we possess already. And that takes time and kind of incubation. And that's where meditation comes in, but other contemplative things, because it doesn't all have to happen like formally on a meditation cushion. There's all kinds of ways that we can synchronize our body, our breath, and our mind in the present moment in such a way that we can feel what's happening instead of reacting to what's happening or trying to control what's happening. Instead, we can actually relate directly and thoroughly to what's coming towards us. And I think that's very important right now because the world is really changing so much. It was funny because when I was writing this book, I was writing old material that was relevant to what was happening during COVID. But I found even more so that the methods that we have in Karuna are so helpful for any kind of racism and diversity work. It brings a certain kind of loving kindness to ourselves first, just for the ignorance that we possess. We have to be very kind with ourselves if we're going to do that kind of deep work to wake up to the way in which we're programmed in a way to ignore the world. And also just this unpredictability that we're living in weather-wise with the climate. This is no doubt about it a different time, and a time that calls forth for collaboration. And we won't collaborate unless we abide in our hearts. We will only protect our territory and try to get ahead and do all the habitual things unless we learn how to abide in our hearts. And that's usually, you have to be very motivated to do that. Things have to usually happen in people's life. It's like Pema Chodron, who's very much a part of the same tradition I am. She talks about when things fall apart, right? This book that's so famous. It's the same tradition that I'm talking about, that we have to get to a point where we really know that we need to choose sanity. And we have what it takes to do that, but it takes like-minded people in a community. And so Karuna Training creates a community so we can remember again and again with people.
I love that. And thank you so much for bringing your wisdom to this work that you're offering for practitioners to take into their practices with their clients and patients, and as well as the readers of the book. And I think some of the things that really, stand out in the book is like what you said, working with difficult emotions, embodying deep listening skills, and also really facing the fears and challenges you have in relationship. And I know these are, practical tools that you offer in the book as well as now in retreats. And so I wonder if you can just speak a little bit about the retreats that you're offering, um,
Yeah.
that have come out of this.
Yeah, thank you. We're in a period where we're not launching a new cohort yet, just because we need to pause, because the way that we've offered things in the past require a lot of travel for a lot of people, and that's getting more and more difficult and expensive. So we're really seeking to find new ways. So we're offering one-off open retreats right now. We have one in September at a retreat center in Tehachapi, California, called Ari Bode. All of this is on the website. We can put a link for this, but it's called Journey of Liberation. And this is exciting because we're doing a practice that was offered to us by Chogyam Trungpa, who is fairly well known, kind of an outrageous character, but he created a practice for Westerners that draws on an ancient Dzogchen Tibetan Buddhist tradition of taking certain postures, and these postures of particular energies in your body and in your mind, a lot of habitual energies as well as like open and awake awareness energies. So we all operate on a continuum. And so at this retreat, we're doing all the postures outdoors in nature on the ground, which is really connecting to the elemental energies, because each of the five Buddha families correlates to one of the elements, the five elements in the Tibetan system, which are space, water, earth, fire, and wind. So we connect to that, and then we're pairing it with the paramitas, which is a classic teaching on opening the heart, a path of opening the heart through Buddhist teachings on compassion. And so each one of the paramitas, like generosity and discipline, patience, exertion, meditation, and wisdom, all of these innate capacities within us correlate with the kind of neurosis of the five Buddha families. So in this retreat, we're just exploring that very personally and deeply. So what Karuna does is create containers for people to take the teachings of, and we draw from Tibetan Buddhism, but we're not a spiritual path, we're a training, because we want people to take that information and make it very personal in their own life and have an opportunity to really examine how that's working in their lives right now. And so much of our work is creating, we make agreements together how to have a kind container where we can speak openly and acceptingly of our experience. So that's what we're up to.
So I'm really glad you mentioned that, because that was a question, do you have to be Buddhist or practicing, Buddhism to attend this retreat, or is this open to anyone and everyone?
Yeah, that's so good that you say that, because, so we're in this phase, and we've been in it for some time as Buddhism has come to the West. It's not going to wear the cloak of its ancient, it has for some time here in the West, but that's been more like fetishism. But, the kind of archaic thing that goes on in Tibet with gurus on thrones, that's for a interest of some people, but not for everybody. Most people are not really interested in that level of practice and devotion. So basically, as it migrates to the West, the teachings are very applicable. And I feel like Karuna is one of the containers that's finding ways to stay true to the teachings, which means that we understand that meditation is at the heart of it, and emptiness, or this openness of self, is the path, that we're letting go of our conditioned nature to find our unconditioned nature, which is perfect as it is. And so we're staying true to the teachings, but at the same time allowing exploration for Westerners in psychological terms, because Buddhism has traveled to the West on the language of psychology. And therefore, through psychology, we Westerners can access its personal depth and meaning, which is really, you know, Buddha wasn't a Buddha, he wasn't a Buddhist, you know. And so we have to, and I think the isms of our time, or religions in general, people are fleeing these organized religion situations, and for good reason. And so new models are called forth. Community is necessary, spirituality is necessary, but I'm not so sure that we need all the top-down hierarchy and all of that any longer, in my opinion. But some people really adhere to that, and I support them. But and I did for many years, but I feel that shifting like tectonic plates inside my being. It's like,
Mhm.
no, I'm not doing this anymore.
Mhm. Thank you for sharing that. Yeah.
Yeah, but it doesn't mean that the wisdom that's come forward is incredibly invaluable. You know, it's so valuable, and it came in this package, but that package is no longer going to sustain, I don't think.
And I think that's what I love about your book too, because you really talk about your own personal journey and your growth and evolution as a human being, is
Mm-hmm.
what is anchoring, you know, these teachings together and making them very practical and making it really obvious to your readers how practical these teachings can be in your own life.
Yeah.
And so thank you for sharing your story too in this book. It's
Thank
beautiful.
you.
And I just, where can people find more about you, Melissa, and your training?
Yeah, well, I have a website for sure that is the diamondswithinus.org. That's about the book. And I have many, many podcasts there that I've been doing over the last couple of years. But
Wonderful.
then if you want to find out more about Karuna Training, it's karunatraining.com. And there I have events that are coming up. Like I mentioned, this retreat in Tehachapi at September 2nd through 9th. We're just signing up, and that'll be closed at, you know, right before at the end of August, but please, there's still lots of room, and it's going to be a lovely retreat. So karunatraining.com. But it's so nice to see you. Thank you for all your help. I have to really plug your services and the kind of mentoring and tutoring that you brought. You know, it's just so not easy to birth into being an author. It needs incubation, and I really felt like I found that through your company. So thank you so much.